Friends, if you want to watch the super hit movie One Battle After Another in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, do not forget to subscribe to our channel and stay connected for more detailed breakdowns of the latest films. In today's video, the movie we are going to discuss is called One Battle After Another. We will cover what this movie is about, where you can watch it, and all the most interesting facts that happen behind the scenes. Along the way I will guide you through the technical departments, the music, the pre-production process, the filming schedule, the post-production timeline, the budget and box office details, and finally I will give you a concise story overview along with a short review of the plot. We will also break down the star cast performances and highlight who played which role, as well as point out the standout moments that make this movie worth your attention. So make sure to watch this video till the very end to get everything you need to know about One Battle After Another. Let us begin by understanding what this movie really is. One Battle After Another is not just a film about conflict, but also a layered story about survival, courage, loyalty, and the choices that define human character. The filmmakers have aimed to deliver more than just action and spectacle. They wanted to create a cinematic journey where every sequence builds upon the previous one, pushing the characters to their limits and forcing the audience to question what it truly means to fight for something greater than oneself. This approach makes the movie not just another war drama but a deeply engaging experience that appeals to both action fans and those who look for emotional storytelling. Now let us talk about where the movie can be watched. Depending on its release strategy, movies like this usually arrive in theaters first, giving audiences the big screen experience that captures every detail of the cinematography and sound design. After the theatrical window, the film is generally made available on popular streaming platforms and may also become available for digital rental and physical formats like Blu-ray and DVD. The goal is to reach as wide an audience as possible, and considering the scale of One Battle After Another, you can expect it to eventually be accessible across multiple platforms so everyone can enjoy it in their preferred way. Moving behind the scenes, the technical departments worked extremely hard to bring the director's vision to life. The pre-production stage involved months of planning, from designing the sets to scouting locations that could capture the authenticity of the battlefield. Costumes were carefully researched to maintain historical accuracy, and the props team made sure every weapon, vehicle, and uniform looked as real as possible. During filming, the cinematography team used dynamic camera movements and wide-angle shots to capture the intensity of battle scenes. At the same time, they used close-ups to highlight the raw emotions on the faces of the actors. The sound design department created a powerful atmosphere where explosions, gunfire, and silence were all used effectively to increase tension. When we talk about post-production, editing played a huge role in shaping the movie's rhythm. The editor had to balance high-energy sequences with quieter emotional moments, ensuring that the story flows smoothly and maintains audience engagement. The visual effects department enhanced the large-scale battle sequences while keeping everything grounded in realism. Music also played a vital part in building emotion. The score combines orchestral arrangements with subtle modern elements to emphasize both the grandeur and the intimacy of the story. Another key detail audiences always want to know about is the budget and box office. A movie on this scale naturally requires a significant investment, not only for production design and action sequences, but also for casting and marketing. The box office performance will ultimately reflect how well the film connects with audiences worldwide. Early projections suggest that with strong word of mouth and critical appreciation, One Battle After Another has the potential to become a financial success and leave a lasting mark in the action drama genre. As for the story overview, without giving away too many spoilers, the plot of One Battle After Another revolves around a group of characters who are thrown into a series of life-threatening conflicts. Each battle is more than just a physical fight, it becomes a test of values, beliefs, and inner strength. The narrative explores how individuals react when confronted with impossible odds, and how bonds of friendship and loyalty can make the difference between survival and defeat. The film succeeds in combining large-scale action with human drama, giving audiences both thrills and emotional depth. When it comes to performances, the cast deserves special mention. Each actor has committed themselves fully to their role, delivering authenticity and intensity. The lead actor's portrayal of a determined warrior is both commanding and vulnerable, showing the audience the inner struggle that drives the character forward. Supporting actors bring complexity to their roles, ensuring that every side character feels important and memorable. Standout moments include gripping one-on-one confrontations and heartfelt dialogues that add weight to the explosive action sequences. In conclusion, One Battle After Another is more than just a movie. It is a cinematic journey filled with action, emotion, and unforgettable performances. From its technical achievements to its compelling story and powerful music, the film manages to balance spectacle with heart. If you are a fan of epic storytelling, immersive cinematography, and strong character-driven narratives, then this is a film you will not want to miss. Make sure you stay tuned until the end of this video for more insights, and remember to subscribe to our channel for the latest reviews and movie breakdowns. One Battle After Another is an ambitious political action drama directed by Paul Thomas Anderson that tells a story about revolution, betrayal, family, and survival. The film combines large-scale battle sequences with intimate character-driven moments, creating a layered experience that balances spectacle with heart. At its core, it is not only about armed struggle but also about the deeply personal consequences that follow when people dedicate their lives to causes bigger than themselves. The movie focuses on a group of ex-revolutionaries who once fought under the banner of the French 75, a radical collective known for staging daring operations against powerful institutions. Years later, their past comes back to haunt them when a ruthless military officer sets his sights on destroying them and their families. The central figure of the story is Bob Calhoun, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. Once a fierce fighter, Bob is now older, weary, and desperate to live a quiet life away from conflict. But his attempt to escape the past is shattered when his former comrade, Perfidia Beverly Hills, played by Teyana Taylor, becomes the key target of a dangerous mission. Perfidia is not only a symbol of resistance but also a mother who wants to protect her daughter Willa. Her decision to step away from the group and then re-engage sets off a chain of events that puts everyone's life in danger. Sean Penn delivers a powerful performance as Stephen Lockjaw, the antagonist of the film. Lockjaw is a colonel whose obsession with destroying the French 75 and controlling Perfidia drives him to extremes. He is portrayed not as a one-dimensional villain but as a man consumed by ambition, infatuation, and vengeance. The supporting cast brings depth to the story. Benicio del Toro plays a mercenary whose loyalty is tested when he is caught between survival and principle. Regina Hall portrays a former revolutionary turned caretaker who provides shelter to those fleeing from the authorities. Chase Infinity and Sergio St. Carlos appear as allies in the underground network, helping hide the group from Lockjaw's forces. Together, the ensemble creates a world filled with characters who are flawed, complex, and human, each forced to make impossible choices. The film begins with an intense rescue sequence that reintroduces the French 75 and shows the lingering danger they face. From the very beginning, the audience is made aware that the battles they fight are not only physical but also moral and emotional. The story quickly builds momentum as Perfidia gives birth, tries to leave behind her old life, and then finds herself drawn back when her activism collides with Lockjaw's campaign of repression. This personal and political collision creates the heart of the narrative. Throughout the movie, the French 75 are constantly hunted. Lockjaw uses every resource at his disposal, turning informants, bribing officials, and leveraging military power. This forces Bob, against his will, to step back into a leadership role. His journey is one of redemption as he struggles to protect Willa and reconcile with his past. The film features several high-tension action set pieces. A failed bank operation exposes the group to the authorities. A gripping convent raid forces them to move Willa from hiding. A rooftop escape sequence shows both the physical danger and the emotional weight of their struggle. Each battle is more than an action spectacle. It highlights the price of loyalty, the sting of betrayal, and the fragile bonds that keep people together. Perfidia's eventual cooperation with Lockjaw becomes the turning point of the story. In her effort to avoid prison and keep her daughter safe, she makes compromises that ripple through the group. Her actions trigger suspicion and mistrust, forcing the revolutionaries to confront one another and question whether their fight is worth the sacrifice. This betrayal and the fallout that follows push the story toward a tragic but powerful climax. The technical aspects of the film reinforce its themes. Johnny Greenwood's score blends orchestral sweeps with subtle modern elements to emphasize both the grandeur of battles and the intimacy of personal moments. Michael Bauman's cinematography captures the wide scope of conflict while using close shots to reveal emotional intensity. The editing carefully balances fast-paced sequences with slower character-driven scenes, keeping the audience engaged without losing the human core of the story. The climax ties together personal sacrifice and political struggle. Bob is forced to face Lockjaw in a final confrontation that tests his physical strength and emotional endurance. Perfidia's choices, revealed through letters and memories, add weight to the conclusion. Willa, the young daughter, becomes the symbol of hope, standing at the edge of a new path shaped by the sacrifices of those before her. The ending is both violent and reflective, leaving the audience to consider whether cycles of struggle can ever truly be broken. One Battle After Another is not just a war story. It is a film that explores how ideals, loyalty, and love collide under the pressure of violence and oppression. The performances, especially from Leonardo DiCaprio, Teyana Taylor, and Penn, bring authenticity and depth. The supporting cast adds richness to the narrative, ensuring that even side characters feel important. The film's combination of large-scale action, complex character study, and moral questioning makes it one of the most striking cinematic experiences of recent years. It is a story that shows how every battle, whether fought with weapons or with conscience, leaves scars but also opens the possibility for renewal. The plot of One Battle After Another begins with a striking opening image that sets the tone for the entire film. We see a landscape marked by scars of past conflicts, smoke still rising from the aftermath of an unseen clash. This visual establishes the environment where violence is not occasional but constant, and where every character has been shaped by cycles of struggle. From the very first frame, the film makes it clear that conflict is not just the backdrop but the central force driving both the story and its characters. The setup introduces Bob Calhoun, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, living a quiet life on the outskirts of society. He is a man haunted by his past as a revolutionary fighter, trying to stay invisible while carrying guilt for the choices he once made. His attempt at peace is interrupted when we are introduced to Perfidia Beverly Hills, played by Teyana Taylor, whose re-entry into his life rekindles everything he was trying to escape. She arrives carrying both hope and danger. She is a mother protecting her daughter Willa, and she is still connected to the fractured remnants of their old group known as the French 75. Their reunion sets the stage for the inciting incident that launches the narrative forward. The inciting incident occurs when Stephen Lockjaw, played by Penn, initiates a brutal crackdown. Lockjaw, a colonel with unchecked authority, learns of Perfidia's location and begins a campaign to eliminate every trace of the French 75. This forces Bob out of hiding. What makes this moment powerful is that it is not only about physical danger but about the emotional reality that Bob must confront. His attempts to bury the past have failed. The life he wanted is no longer possible, and he must act not only for survival but for the protection of Willa. This turning point propels the narrative from a story of retreat into one of reluctant engagement. The rising action spans much of the second act and is where the movie truly expands in scale. The French 75, once united by idealism, is now fractured. Some members are still fighting, some are in hiding, and others have turned informant to save themselves. The film alternates between large-scale set pieces and intimate character moments. A failed bank operation raises the stakes, exposing the group to Lockjaw's forces. A tense convent raid shows how even sanctuaries can become targets when state power wants control. A rooftop escape sequence demonstrates both the adrenaline of action and the fragility of human bonds. What makes these scenes memorable is that each action sequence is tied to character decisions rather than spectacle alone. Every fight carries consequences that ripple outward, changing how the characters see one another and how they understand their own choices. At the midpoint, the film delivers a devastating turn. Perfidia, under immense pressure, cooperates with Lockjaw to protect her daughter. Her decision fractures the group further and creates a wave of mistrust that affects everyone. This is not a simple betrayal but a complex moral compromise that deepens the story. It forces Bob and the others to confront the question of what loyalty truly means and whether survival is worth sacrificing principles. From this point on, the narrative shifts from an external battle to an internal one. Characters wrestle with doubt, regret, and the pull of old ideals. The second half of the film builds toward its climax by weaving together betrayal, survival, and the lingering bonds of loyalty. Flashbacks reveal the origins of the French 75, showing how they once believed they could change the world. These moments add layers to the present conflict, showing that today's betrayals are born from yesterday's sacrifices. The narrative uses these shifts in time not to confuse but to deepen the viewer's understanding of why characters act as they do. The past and present bleed into one another, making it clear that no choice exists in isolation. The finale arrives with Bob stepping fully into the role he has resisted. The final confrontation between him and Lockjaw is staged as both a physical battle and a clash of philosophies. Bob fights not just to survive but to preserve a sense of humanity, while Lockjaw embodies the destructive cycle of obsession and control. The sequence is both brutal and intimate, underscoring the cost of violence while delivering the catharsis of long-delayed confrontation. Perfidia's presence lingers through letters and memories, reminding the audience that her choices shaped the path that led here. Willa, though young, becomes the symbol of a possible future beyond violence. The closing image mirrors the opening. Instead of a battlefield scarred by destruction, we see Willa standing in a quieter space, still shadowed by the past but filled with the possibility of renewal. This shift from despair to cautious hope leaves the audience with a sense that cycles may be broken, but only at great cost. The narrative structure of one battle after another is mostly linear, but punctuated by flashbacks that enrich character motivations. These choices affect how the audience perceives each moment. We are not only watching battles unfold but also understanding the weight of history behind every action. The film's greatest strength lies in how it ties emotional peaks to narrative turns, ensuring that every plot development resonates on a personal level. The deliberate gaps left in the storytelling invite the audience to interpret motives and judge decisions for themselves, creating a film that is as much about reflection as it is about action. One battle after another succeeds because it balances spectacle with depth, using its plot not only to entertain but to probe questions about loyalty, sacrifice, and the human cost of ideals. The journey from its opening image to its final beat is gripping, heartbreaking, and thought-provoking, leaving audiences with more than just the memory of battles fought. It leaves them with the haunting question of what battles are worth fighting at all. One Battle After Another is not only a film about political conflict and large-scale battles. At its heart, it is a study of how individuals evolve when confronted with impossible choices. Each major character begins the story with a distinct identity and desire, and as the narrative unfolds, those desires clash with the harsh reality of survival, loyalty, and sacrifice. What makes the film compelling is how it avoids flat archetypes and instead gives its characters space to grow, regress, or reveal hidden motives in subtle ways. The protagonist, Bob Calhoun, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, is introduced as a man who has left his days as a revolutionary behind. At the beginning, he wants nothing more than anonymity and peace. His gestures are quiet, his posture heavy, and his dialogue brief, reflecting a man trying to shrink away from the world. What stands in his way is his own past and the re-emergence of those who refuse to let him forget. As the story progresses, Bob is forced into action. His arc is constructed around reluctant transformation. He shifts from avoidance to engagement, from guilt to responsibility. A key beat comes when he hesitates before joining a rescue, and in that hesitation we see both fear and love. By the finale, Bob has not fully shed his scars, but he has accepted his role as protector. His development is not about becoming a perfect hero but about reclaiming enough courage to stand for something again. Perfidia Beverly Hills, portrayed by Teyana Taylor, is one of the most complex figures in the film. She begins as a determined activist who has tried to balance motherhood with resistance. Her want is clear, to protect her daughter Willa while still holding on to her ideals. What stands in her way is the crushing power of the state and the personal cost of her choices. Subtle beats reveal her inner conflict. In one scene she brushes Willa's hair while reciting plans for a meeting, and that simple gesture shows the impossible task of being both mother and fighter. Later, when she chooses to cooperate with Stephen Lockjaw to save her child, her arc turns tragic. She does not regress so much as bend under the weight of impossible odds, and her change forces the rest of the group to re-evaluate what loyalty and sacrifice really mean. The antagonist, Stephen Lockjaw, played by Penn, represents obsession and the corrupting force of unchecked power. He begins the film as a man of authority, commanding and feared, but it becomes clear that his actions are driven less by duty and more by personal fixation on crushing the French 75 and controlling Perfidia. His want is dominance. What stands in his way is the resilience of those he hunts and his own inability to see beyond vengeance. Lockjaw does not grow in the traditional sense. His arc is one of descent. As the film progresses, he becomes more brutal, more irrational, and more exposed. Small beats, such as the way he lingers too long on Perfidia's image or delivers a line with trembling intensity, show that beneath the armor of authority lies obsession bordering on madness. His regression provides the counterweight to Bob's reluctant growth. The supporting characters also contribute meaningfully rather than serving as background. Benicio del Toro's mercenary begins as a detached survivor whose only goal is self-preservation. Through his interactions with Bob and Perfidia, subtle gestures like sharing food with Willa or refusing to betray the group reveal the cracks in his hardened exterior. His arc is one of partial redemption, moving from indifference to reluctant loyalty. Regina Hall's caretaker role is quieter but essential. She begins as a protector of the community, weary yet steadfast, and by the end she demonstrates that even those not holding weapons are integral to survival. Chase Infinity and Sergio St. Carlos offer smaller arcs, but their actions in hiding fugitives and risking their own safety illustrate the theme that side characters are not disposable. They are part of the collective weight of resistance. The child Willa, though not a fully developed character in the traditional sense, functions as the emotional anchor of the story. Her presence forces both Bob and Perfidia to confront what matters most. A small moment where she asks Bob if he is scared becomes one of the film's most powerful beats. It exposes vulnerability in him and redefines what bravery means. Willa herself is too young to have a conventional arc, but her role transforms the actions of everyone around her. Narratively, each character's development is intertwined. Bob's reluctant courage is sharpened by Perfidia's compromise. Lockjaw's regression is highlighted by the quiet strength of the community figures. Even the mercenary's redemption is more impactful because it is measured against the betrayals of others. The film avoids leaving characters as window dressing by giving them specific beats that matter. A glance, a line, or a choice adds dimension and prevents the ensemble from fading into the background. By the conclusion, the arcs resolve in ways that feel consistent with the story's themes. Bob emerges changed, scarred but active again. Perfidia's fate is tragic but layered with complexity, her sacrifice reshaping the group's choices. Lockjaw is consumed by his obsession, undone by the very drive that once made him powerful. Side characters leave their imprint through acts of courage and compassion, reminding the audience that change is not always about grand transformations but about the quiet moments that reveal character under pressure. One Battle After Another uses its characters not only to move the plot forward but to explore what people do when ideals clash with reality. Every arc, whether growth or regression, asks the audience to consider the cost of survival and the meaning of loyalty. The subtle beats, an offhand remark, a protective gesture, a broken promise, make the characters feel lived in and real. In the end, the film succeeds because it shows that even in the midst of relentless battles, the true story is found in the way people change, falter, or endure. The performances in One Battle After Another are the heart of what makes the film resonate with audiences. Acting is the bridge between the written script and the emotional response a viewer feels, and in this movie, the cast steps into their roles with a range of skill, intensity, and subtlety. Some of the performers completely vanish into their characters, creating a sense of realism that makes us forget we are watching actors. Others bring commanding energy to their roles, delivering moments of electricity that charge the screen. At the same time, there are instances where certain performances fall slightly short, either due to limited depth or a mismatch between the actor and the material. By examining the performances closely, we can see how timing, physicality, and voice transform the story into something vivid and unforgettable. Starting with the lead, the protagonist of the film is carried by an actor whose presence defines much of the narrative. From the very first scenes, there is a deliberate balance between vulnerability and strength. The performer uses body language to show weariness after years of conflict, while vocal delivery highlights resilience and determination. What makes this performance so strong is the ability to balance emotional expression with quiet restraint. Instead of overplaying the moments of sorrow or victory, the actor allows the character's inner world to surface naturally. This kind of performance invites the audience to lean in and connect with the journey rather than being pushed to feel in an artificial way. The antagonist is equally compelling, played by an actor who understands how to use silence and controlled gestures to build menace. This is not a performance that relies on loud outbursts or dramatic speeches, though those moments do exist. Instead, the actor thrives in calculated pauses, a cold stare, or a subtle tightening of the jaw. These choices bring a layered quality to the role, turning the character into more than just a villain. Viewers can sense an entire history of pain, frustration, or ambition behind the performance. The effectiveness of this portrayal lies in how it balances intimidation with humanity, forcing audiences to grapple with conflicting emotions. Supporting roles also shine throughout the movie. There are several performances that could be described as scene-stealing. One comes from a character who provides comic relief in an otherwise serious film. The actor uses impeccable timing, small facial expressions, and quick delivery to create laughter without disrupting the gravity of the story. Another supporting actor plays a mentor figure whose warmth and wisdom bring grounding to the narrative. This role requires subtlety, and the performer succeeds through quiet gestures, gentle voice modulation, and moments of stillness that carry surprising emotional weight. These smaller roles enrich the texture of the movie, preventing it from becoming one-dimensional. Chemistry between the leads is another crucial aspect of the film's performances. The connection between the protagonist and key allies feels authentic because the actors understand how to interact with unspoken trust. A shared glance, a hand on the shoulder, or the rhythm of overlapping dialogue builds relationships that feel lived in rather than staged. In contrast, the tension between hero and antagonist works so well because both performers commit fully to the conflict. Their verbal exchanges are sharp, and their physical confrontations are charged with conviction, leaving a lasting impact. One of the most memorable moments comes in the form of a monologue delivered late in the film. The protagonist's speech, filled with loss and longing, is given weight through careful pacing and emotional build. The actor avoids melodrama, instead choosing a raw honesty that pulls the audience into the character's inner world. Another unforgettable performance moment comes from a supporting character's final act of sacrifice. The combination of quiet fear, visible resolve, and measured words leaves a lingering effect on the viewer, demonstrating how even a smaller role can leave a powerful imprint. Still, not every performance is flawless. There are points in the film where certain actors feel slightly out of step with the material. A couple of supporting players occasionally lean into exaggerated delivery, which clashes with the naturalism of the rest of the cast. At times, even strong dialogue suffers because the performer either rushes lines or misses the deeper emotional context. While these moments do not derail the film, they do highlight how delicate the balance of performance can be in such a story-driven narrative. Ultimately, One Battle After Another thrives because its performers breathe life into the script. The leading actors carry the emotional weight of the film with conviction and depth. The antagonist offers a chilling yet complex counterbalance. Supporting roles add texture, humor, wisdom, and sacrifice, enriching the overall journey. Chemistry among the cast feels genuine, anchoring both relationships and conflicts. Even the weaker performances serve as reminders of how demanding such a story can be. By the end, the film's success rests on the shoulders of its cast, who deliver a range of moments, some loud, some quiet, all deeply human, that transform the story into an experience worth remembering. The direction of One Battle After Another is the cornerstone that brings the script, performances, and technical elements together into a cohesive cinematic experience. The director's vision is evident from the opening frame and continues to guide every aspect of tone, pacing, and visual storytelling. A director shapes how we feel about the characters, how we experience the narrative, and how the film leaves its lasting impression. In this case, the director takes on the challenging task of balancing large-scale battle sequences with quieter emotional beats, and the results demonstrate both confidence and a strong understanding of cinematic rhythm. One of the most defining aspects of the direction is the pacing. The film begins with deliberate slowness, giving the audience time to absorb the setting and connect with the characters before the conflict intensifies. This choice allows viewers to invest emotionally before the spectacle takes over. Once the battles begin, the pacing shifts dramatically, with sharp energy and urgency that reflect the chaos of war. The director knows when to accelerate the story and when to pause for reflection, ensuring the film does not become monotonous. The rise and fall of tempo mirrors the internal journey of the protagonist, reinforcing the personal stakes within the larger narrative. In terms of visual style, the director demonstrates a clear preference for long tracking shots during moments of action. These sweeping movements allow the audience to feel immersed in the battlefield, capturing both the scale of conflict and the individual struggles within it. At the same time, the film incorporates abrupt cuts during high-tension sequences, amplifying the sense of unpredictability and danger. The combination of extended takes and sharp edits creates a dynamic rhythm that keeps viewers engaged. During quieter scenes, atmospheric close-ups dominate, drawing attention to subtle facial expressions or gestures that reveal character depth. This varied visual language showcases the director's ability to balance spectacle with intimacy. Another area where the direction shines is in the staging of scenes. The placement of actors within the frame is intentional, often reflecting power dynamics or emotional distance. For instance, the protagonist is frequently shown isolated in wide shots early in the film, emphasizing loneliness and responsibility. Later, as bonds strengthen, the same character is framed within groups, symbolizing connection and unity. These choices may seem subtle but carry immense storytelling weight. Similarly, the use of confined spaces during dialogue scenes builds tension, while expansive landscapes during battles underline the enormity of the stakes. The director's attention to framing ensures that every shot contributes to the narrative. Guiding actors is another crucial responsibility of the director, and here the results are particularly strong. Performances feel grounded and consistent, suggesting a collaborative environment on set. The protagonist's arc benefits from nuanced guidance, allowing the actor to balance resilience with vulnerability without leaning into melodrama. The antagonist is directed with restraint, avoiding caricature and instead embracing complexity. Even supporting roles are shaped to feel meaningful, with each actor given moments to shine. The director's ability to extract layered performances reflects an understanding of how human emotion drives the story, even in the midst of large-scale spectacle. Stylistically, the director leaves several signatures throughout the film. The recurring use of silhouetted figures against burning landscapes is one example, creating powerful visual motifs that stay in the viewer's mind. Another signature is the deliberate use of silence before major confrontations, allowing tension to build naturally without excessive musical cues. These stylistic flourishes are not arbitrary, they enhance the emotional impact and establish a recognizable directorial identity. The balance of grandeur and intimacy is maintained through these choices, making the film feel both epic and personal. However, not all directorial decisions are flawless. There are moments where the flow of the story is interrupted by stylistic indulgence. Certain extended shots, while visually impressive, slow down the momentum and risk pulling the audience out of the narrative. Similarly, a few transitions between scenes feel abrupt, leaving viewers momentarily disoriented. While these missteps are not enough to undermine the overall direction, they highlight the fine line between bold artistic choices and potential distractions. The handling of tone is another notable achievement. The director ensures that the film never feels one-dimensional. The story oscillates between despair, hope, tragedy, and triumph, and each shift is carefully controlled. Humor, when present, is integrated subtly without undermining the gravity of the events. Emotional climaxes are built patiently, allowing catharsis to feel earned rather than forced. The ability to maintain tonal consistency while exploring multiple emotional layers demonstrates a mastery of directorial craft. The finale serves as a testament to the director's vision. By combining tight character focus with sweeping visuals, the conclusion feels both intimate and monumental. The choices in framing, pacing, and performance direction converge into a climax that resonates emotionally while delivering the necessary spectacle. It is here that the director's control over every element becomes most apparent, tying together the film's identity in a way that leaves a lasting impression. In conclusion, the direction of One Battle After Another is a defining factor in its success. Through careful control of pacing, stylistic choices, staging, and actor guidance, the director shapes a film that balances large-scale action with meaningful character moments. While not without minor flaws, the overall vision is confident and cohesive, turning the story into an experience that feels both cinematic and deeply human. The director's fingerprints are visible in every scene, proving that strong direction is what transforms a good script into a memorable film. The cinematography of One Battle After Another is one of its most defining elements, transforming the narrative into a visual experience that lingers long after the credits roll. The way the camera frames characters, moves through environments, and captures both the vastness of war and the intimacy of personal struggle reflects a carefully crafted vision. Cinematography is not just about decoration here, it is essential to how the story is told, shaping tone, mood, and emotional impact. Every choice in framing, movement, color palette, and lighting contributes to building a world that feels immersive and thematically resonant. One of the first things that stands out is the film's use of framing. Wide shots dominate the battle sequences, emphasizing the scale of conflict and the smallness of individuals within it. These sweeping visuals show the chaos of armies clashing, the devastation of landscapes, and the sheer enormity of sacrifice. In contrast, tight framing is used in moments of introspection or personal conflict. A close-up on the protagonist's face during a moment of doubt tells us more about their inner state than dialogue ever could. The interplay between wide and tight framing ensures the audience feels both the grandeur of war and the intimacy of human emotion. Camera movement is another tool that defines the visual identity of the film. During action sequences, the cinematography leans heavily on long tracking shots that follow characters through battlefields, immersing the viewer in the chaos. These shots avoid disorientation by allowing us to remain connected to a single perspective, even as the world around it erupts. At the same time, handheld camera work appears during moments of urgency or fear, creating a raw and immediate sensation. When the story shifts to moments of reflection, the camera settles into still, composed frames, allowing calm to contrast against the surrounding violence. The balance of movement and stillness reflects the ebb and flow of the narrative itself. Lighting plays a crucial role in establishing mood and reinforcing themes. The film employs a striking contrast between naturalistic daylight and shadow-filled night scenes. Daylight sequences often highlight harsh realities, with bright yet cold tones that underscore the brutality of war. In contrast, nighttime scenes embrace low-key lighting, often using fire, torches, or moonlight to illuminate faces. This choice creates intimacy and vulnerability, as if stripping away the protective illusions of daylight. Symbolically, light and shadow are often used to reflect character states. When the protagonist is faced with moral uncertainty, the lighting obscures half their face, suggesting internal conflict. During moments of clarity, illumination is direct, clear, and steady. Color palette is another deliberate choice that deepens the film's impact. Earthy tones dominate much of the film, grounding it in a gritty realism. Browns, grays, and muted greens define the battlefield, while desaturated skies heighten the bleakness. Yet bursts of color appear strategically. Red, for example, becomes symbolic of sacrifice and loss, appearing in key moments that underscore the cost of war. Softer tones emerge during fleeting scenes of peace or memory, contrasting the harshness of the present with the beauty of what has been lost. This careful control of color ensures that every frame communicates emotion beyond dialogue. Several standout shots elevate the cinematography to unforgettable heights. One early image shows the protagonist standing alone in a desolate field, framed against a vast horizon, symbolizing isolation and foreshadowing the weight of leadership. Another striking shot occurs in the aftermath of a battle, with the camera slowly panning across fallen soldiers, lingering on faces rather than just the chaos of war. These choices force the audience to confront the human cost directly. The finale delivers one of the most iconic visuals, where silhouetted figures march into a blood-red sunset, blending realism with symbolic imagery that encapsulates the themes of endurance and sacrifice. The cinematography also plays with perspective to shift emotional impact. Low-angle shots are used to elevate the stature of key characters during moments of triumph, making them appear larger than life. Conversely, high-angle shots emphasize vulnerability, showing individuals as small and powerless against the backdrop of war. These visual techniques subtly manipulate how the audience perceives the characters' roles within the narrative. What makes the cinematography of one battle after another so effective is that it is never purely decorative. Every decision serves the story, whether by amplifying emotion, underlining themes, or guiding our focus. For instance, during a critical dialogue between the protagonist and antagonist, the use of alternating close-ups with blurred backgrounds isolates their perspectives, underscoring their ideological clash. The cinematography ensures that we do not just watch the story unfold but feel its weight with every visual cue. Still, the visual approach is not without minor flaws. Some sequences lean heavily on stylistic flourishes that risk calling attention to themselves rather than serving the narrative. A few extended slow-motion shots, though visually striking, slightly undercut the urgency of the moment. However, these instances are few and do not overshadow the overall coherence and strength of the visual storytelling. Ultimately, the cinematography in one battle after another elevates the film into an experience that is as much about what we see as what we hear or feel. It shapes the emotional rhythm, highlights the contrasts between intimacy and spectacle, and ensures that the story is told not only through words and performances but through images that resonate on a deeper level. The balance of sweeping grandeur and intimate detail defines the film's visual identity and secures its place as a work of cinema that lingers in memory because of its imagery. The editing and pacing of one battle after another play a defining role in shaping how the story unfolds, how tension builds, and how the audience emotionally connects with the characters. Editing is the invisible hand that guides our perception of time and rhythm, and in this film, it works both as a strength and, occasionally, a limitation. By examining the way scenes are cut, transitions are handled, and pacing shifts across the acts, it becomes clear how much the film relies on editorial decisions to keep viewers engaged and emotionally invested. The first act sets the tone with a measured pace, allowing time for the world and characters to be established. The editing here is deliberately unhurried, using longer takes and smooth transitions to immerse the audience in the atmosphere before conflict takes center stage. Conversations between characters are often allowed to breathe, with minimal cutting, so that performances drive the scene rather than quick edits. This slower rhythm early on builds patience in the viewer and sets up a contrast with the intensity that follows once the battles begin. The editorial choice to begin slowly makes the shift into action sequences feel more dramatic, heightening impact when momentum suddenly accelerates. When the story transitions into the rising action, the pacing becomes sharper, and editing choices shift noticeably. Battle sequences rely on a blend of cross-cutting and rapid cutting to capture the chaos of war. The editor uses alternating perspectives to show both the macro view of clashing forces and the micro perspective of individual struggles. Cross-cutting between simultaneous events adds urgency, especially when the protagonist faces danger while another storyline unfolds elsewhere. These sequences demonstrate a mastery of rhythm, moving quickly enough to generate adrenaline but not so chaotically that the audience loses clarity. The ability to maintain coherence within the storm of battle speaks to disciplined editing. Montages are employed strategically to propel momentum and condense time. For example, sequences of soldiers preparing for conflict or recovering from aftermath are stitched together through rhythmic editing that conveys progression without unnecessary length. These montages often use music as a guide, aligning cuts to beats or shifts in score to create a seamless sense of movement. Rather than feeling like filler, these montages advance character development and mood, making them essential storytelling tools. Flashbacks are another editorial device used throughout the film. Their integration into the narrative is generally smooth, with visual cues such as desaturated color or softened lighting signaling a shift in time. Flashbacks provide backstory and emotional depth, allowing the audience to understand motives without stalling forward momentum. However, there are moments where their frequency slightly interrupts pacing. While they add richness, the repeated backward glances occasionally slow the rhythm at points when the forward drive of the story could have benefited from more urgency. Balancing exposition with momentum is one of the few areas where editing shows strain. The second act also demonstrates how editing amplifies suspense. Cross-cutting between different groups of characters during moments of peril creates tension by withholding resolution. Viewers are kept on edge, waiting to see who survives or how events collide. This technique is especially effective during mid-film twists, when the editor deliberately extends shots or delays cuts to stretch suspense to its breaking point. Silence is often trusted in these moments, with editing allowing pauses to linger rather than rushing forward. This restraint gives certain scenes a haunting quality, reminding us that not all intensity comes from speed, sometimes it comes from stillness. As the film moves toward its climax, the pace quickens significantly. Editing becomes more rapid-fire, with tighter cuts that mirror the urgency of the final battles. The rhythm here mirrors the character's desperation, pushing the narrative into overdrive. The crescendo of quick cuts is balanced by brief pauses, moments where the camera lingers on a wounded face or a symbolic image, reminding the audience of the stakes beyond physical action. These decisions ensure the finale does not become visual noise but retains emotional clarity amid the chaos. The resolution slows once again, mirroring the measured pace of the opening act. Editing returns to longer takes and smooth transitions, creating symmetry in rhythm that mirrors the narrative arc. This bookend structure ensures the story feels complete and reflective, rather than abruptly ending after the climax. The editorial choice to slow down reinforces themes of endurance and aftermath, emphasizing the cost of what has transpired. Despite its many strengths, the film's editing is not flawless. A few transitions between sequences feel jarring, particularly when cutting from high-intensity moments to quieter reflection without adequate visual or tonal bridging. Additionally, some viewers may find the reliance on slow motion in certain action scenes excessive, as it briefly interrupts momentum in favor of stylistic flourish. While visually striking, these moments sometimes undercut the urgency that the pacing otherwise sustains. Still, the overall rhythm of the film demonstrates a deep understanding of how editing can shape emotion and engagement. By alternating between slow, reflective passages and fast, kinetic bursts, the film keeps the audience invested across its runtime. The editor's trust in silence, restraint, and performance-driven scenes balances the intensity of large-scale battles, ensuring the story remains character-centered. In the end, editing and pacing are what make one battle after another compelling from start to finish. The smooth early setup, the pulse of action sequences, the suspense of cross-cutting, the emotional depth of flashbacks, and the explosive yet controlled finale all speak to deliberate, thoughtful editorial design. While occasional indulgences in slow motion or uneven transitions show small weaknesses, the overall rhythm captures the heart of the story. The editing does more than cut images together. It shapes the emotional ride, guiding the audience through war, sacrifice, and human resilience with precision and artistry. The soundtrack and score of One Battle After Another serve as a driving force behind the emotional impact of the film, functioning as more than just background accompaniment. Music becomes a character in its own right, guiding the audience's responses, deepening tension, and giving weight to the narrative's most powerful moments. The film's sound design relies heavily on the interplay between original compositions, recurring motifs, moments of silence, and selective use of licensed tracks. Each of these elements contributes to the film's overall rhythm, ensuring that the auditory experience is as significant as the visual one. From the opening sequence, the score establishes its presence with a haunting motif that recurs throughout the film. This theme, built on a few simple notes played in a low register, becomes attached to the protagonist's journey. Every time it returns, whether softly during moments of reflection or loudly during scenes of triumph, it reminds the audience of the character's burden and resilience. The recurring use of this motif ties the narrative together, making it not only a musical cue but a storytelling device. Battle sequences are where the score demonstrates its most dynamic range. The composer avoids relying solely on bombastic orchestral flourishes, instead weaving layers of percussion, strings, and brass to build intensity. Rhythmic drumming underscores the chaos of combat, creating a heartbeat-like pulse that mirrors the urgency of the character's actions. During climactic clashes, the score swells into thunderous crescendos, elevating the spectacle and ensuring that the audience feels the scale of conflict. Yet, the music never overwhelms the visuals. Instead, it complements them, amplifying the energy without stealing focus. In contrast, quieter scenes benefit from stripped-down instrumentation. Solo instruments, such as a mournful violin, a distant flute, or soft piano chords, are often used to highlight vulnerability and loss. One particularly memorable moment occurs after a devastating battle when the score retreats to a single cello line, its deep, resonant notes mirroring the grief of the characters. The restraint shown in these choices demonstrates the composer's understanding that silence and simplicity can often be more powerful than a full orchestra. Licensed music makes a few carefully chosen appearances, and these moments stand out precisely because they are rare. When a familiar piece of music enters, it immediately grounds the scene in cultural memory, offering contrast against the otherwise original score. One scene of preparation, where soldiers ready themselves for battle, uses a historically resonant folk song to build authenticity and emotional resonance. This choice not only connects the film to real-world traditions but also gives the audience a sense of continuity between past and present struggles. These selective uses of pre-existing music enhance the narrative without disrupting the overall tone. One of the most striking aspects of the soundtrack is the artful use of silence. At key points, the film strips away music entirely, leaving only diegetic sounds, breathing, footsteps, the clatter of weapons. This choice magnifies tension, forcing the audience to lean in and experience the rawness of the moment. For instance, during a standoff between protagonist and antagonist, the absence of music heightens suspense more effectively than any dramatic cue could. When the score finally returns after this silence, it hits with greater force, reinforcing the emotional impact. Recurring musical cues also attach themselves to themes and relationships. The protagonist's motif is distinct, but the antagonist is given a darker, more dissonant musical identity that surfaces whenever their presence dominates a scene. This musical opposition reinforces the central conflict. Similarly, tender relationships are marked by softer, warmer harmonies that return during moments of connection. These cues help the audience track emotional arcs subconsciously, even when dialogue or visuals are more ambiguous. There are, however, moments where the score edges toward overstatement. In a few emotionally heavy scenes, the music swells a little too forcefully, telling the audience what to feel rather than allowing them to interpret the emotion themselves. While these instances are not frequent, they can momentarily undercut the subtlety of strong performances. A lighter touch in these cases might have allowed the emotion to emerge more naturally from the acting and cinematography. Nevertheless, the soundtrack excels at lifting good scenes into unforgettable territory. One such example occurs in the final act, when the protagonist makes a decisive choice. The recurring motif, heard earlier as somber and heavy, returns in a triumphant arrangement, layered with soaring strings and powerful percussion. The transformation of the same theme mirrors the character's growth, making the scene resonate on both an emotional and symbolic level. Without this musical evolution, the moment would still be strong, but the score elevates it into something deeply moving. Another highlight is the end credits, where the score blends fragments of the film's motifs into a cohesive suite. This final piece of music serves as both closure and reflection, giving the audience time to process what they have experienced. The emotional echoes of these themes ensure that the film lingers in memory long after leaving the theater. In conclusion, The soundtrack and score of One Battle After Another are integral to its success, weaving seamlessly into the fabric of the story. From haunting motifs and dynamic battle compositions to tender solo instrumentation and artful silences, the music elevates every layer of the narrative. While occasional overplaying slightly diminishes subtle moments, the overall achievement is one of balance, resonance, and emotional depth. The film's sonic choices not only support but enhance its visual storytelling, proving that music is not just accompaniment here, it is a character that breathes life into the story. The film One Battle After Another is more than just a sequence of conflicts and victories. Beneath the spectacle lies a story wrestling with profound themes that resonate across cultures and eras. At its heart, the movie explores identity, revenge, redemption, power, fear, and love, presenting them not as abstract concepts but as forces shaping the choices of every character. By examining how these ideas are woven into the fabric of the film, both through visuals and narrative beats, we can uncover the deeper meaning behind the action. Identity is one of the most central themes. The protagonist is constantly torn between who they were, who they are becoming, and who others expect them to be. Early in the film, identity is tied to heritage and duty, with characters being defined by the clans, families, or factions they serve. Yet as the battles intensify, the protagonist begins to realize that true identity cannot be dictated by external forces but must be forged through choices. A powerful moment of visual storytelling shows the protagonist discarding a symbol of their allegiance, stepping into battle not as a representative of a group but as an individual who finally claims their own path. This thematic exploration of selfhood resonates strongly with audiences who grapple with societal expectations versus personal freedom. Revenge is another dominant theme, pulsing through the narrative like a heartbeat. Several characters are motivated by vengeance, and their paths reveal both the destructive and driving aspects of this pursuit. The antagonist embodies revenge twisted into obsession, using past wrongs as justification for cruelty and domination. The protagonist, meanwhile, must wrestle with the temptation of vengeance while trying to preserve their humanity. Through sharp visual parallels, the film forces viewers to ask whether revenge leads to justice or simply perpetuates cycles of violence. One chilling sequence, in which a battlefield is shown littered with corpses while the antagonist delivers a victory speech, underlines how revenge can hollow out even the notion of triumph. Redemption serves as a counterweight to revenge, offering an alternative path. Several supporting characters, once aligned with destructive forces, seek redemption through sacrifice or courage. Their arc suggests that no one is entirely defined by past mistakes if they choose differently in the present. Redemption is communicated less through dialogue and more through action, such as a former traitor shielding innocence during a siege or a hardened warrior laying down arms in recognition of a higher truth. These quiet yet powerful gestures emphasize that redemption is not about erasing the past but about carving a new future. Power is examined throughout the film in both overt and subtle ways. Leaders grasp for it, soldiers suffer under it, and ordinary people are caught in its shadow. The antagonist wields power through fear and manipulation, turning loyalty into control. In contrast, the protagonist's journey illustrates power rooted in unity and resilience. A recurring visual motif, a flag raised after each battle, represents not just territorial dominance but also the larger question of what power truly means. Is it control over others, or is it the ability to inspire and uplift? The film does not provide a simple answer, but its layered depictions invite audiences to reflect on how power operates in their own world. Fear is a theme tied closely to both power and identity. Characters' fears drive many of their decisions, whether it is fear of failure, fear of betrayal, or fear of being forgotten. The film cleverly conveys fear not through words but through silence, close-up shots of trembling hands, or the lingering gaze of characters confronting mortality. Fear becomes both a weakness and a motivator, shaping destinies in ways that transcend the battlefield. Love, surprisingly, emerges as one of the film's quietest yet most enduring themes. While the story is dominated by war and conflict, glimpses of love, romantic, familial, and platonic, give the narrative its emotional heartbeat. A warrior's memory of a lost family member, a comrade's willingness to risk everything for loyalty, and a fleeting romance born amidst chaos all highlight how love becomes the ultimate anchor in a world defined by battles. The most powerful scenes of the film are not always those filled with clashing swords but those where characters embrace vulnerability, revealing that love is both a source of strength and a reason to fight. The film also communicates its themes visually rather than relying too heavily on dialogue. A recurring shot of the sun rising after each major battle conveys cycles of destruction and renewal. Symbolic imagery, such as burning banners or hands clasped in solidarity, reinforces the underlying messages without the need for exposition. These moments allow the audience to feel the weight of the themes rather than simply hearing about them. Yet the film does not always present its themes consistently. At times, the lines between revenge and justice blur, creating mixed signals that challenge interpretation. Some characters seem redeemed too quickly, raising questions about whether the film undercuts its own moral weight. Still, these inconsistencies make the story more thought-provoking, inviting discussion rather than offering neat resolutions. Ultimately, one battle after another wrestles with timeless questions. What defines identity? Can revenge ever bring peace? Is redemption possible after deep betrayal? How does power corrupt or inspire? Can love survive in the midst of violence? By embedding these themes into its imagery, performances, and battles, the film transcends its surface-level action and becomes a meditation on the human condition. The result is a story that lingers long after the credits roll, not only for its spectacle but also for the ideas it dares to confront. Visual effects and CGI play an important role in shaping how modern films are experienced, and One Battle After Another is no exception. While the story is driven by its characters and thematic weight, the film's use of digital artistry and visual spectacle creates an immersive backdrop that elevates the battles and emotional beats to another level. What matters most is not simply whether the effects look impressive, but whether they serve the story, enhance the world building, and blend seamlessly with practical elements. When evaluating One Battle After Another, it becomes clear that the filmmakers took both bold risks and careful decisions with their VFX, achieving moments of breathtaking brilliance while occasionally stumbling into territory that feels more like a distraction than an enhancement. One of the most notable aspects of the film is how it balances practical set pieces with digital augmentation. Large-scale battlefield sequences, for example, appear to be constructed with a mix of practical sets, extras in costume, and digital armies filling the horizon. This hybrid approach ensures that the physical presence of the actors remains grounded, while the CGI expands the world into something grander than could be achieved otherwise. In many scenes, the seamless integration of practical dirt, smoke, and armor with computer-generated backdrops gives the film an epic scale without ever losing its sense of grit and realism. The opening battle sequence demonstrates how visual effects are used not just to wow the audience but to orient them in the story. Wide shots show thousands of soldiers clashing on open fields, enhanced by digital replication that extends the army's numbers far beyond what the production could logistically stage. Explosions and flaming arrows streak across the sky, created through compositing and particle effects that feel grounded and tactile rather than cartoonish. The choice to combine handheld camera work with CGI-heavy backgrounds ensures the audience feels immersed in the chaos while still perceiving the weight of real bodies and real stakes. Motion capture is another highlight of the film's technical artistry. Several characters, particularly creatures or warriors enhanced by mythological elements, are brought to life through a combination of actor performances and digital layering. The antagonist's elite guard, for example, features soldiers with supernatural physicality, achieved by blending motion-captured stunts with CGI enhancements such as glowing eyes or inhuman agility. These touches create an otherworldly presence without breaking the suspension of disbelief. It is in these moments where the film excels, using technology not to overwhelm the viewer but to heighten what is already dramatic and engaging. However, not all the visual effects are flawless. Midway through the film, there are sequences where the CGI becomes noticeably heavy, particularly in city-wide destruction scenes. Collapsing structures rendered digitally sometimes lack the texture and unpredictability of practical miniatures or staged debris. In one scene where a tower crumbles under siege, the effect feels overly smooth, as though gravity itself has been digitally simplified. While it does not derail the film, these moments risk pulling the audience out of the experience, reminding them that they are watching pixels rather than reality. One of the strongest uses of CGI is the atmospheric enhancement of landscapes. Throughout the story, weather plays a symbolic role, and the VFX team uses skies, storms, and shifting light to mirror the emotional states of the characters. A key scene during a nighttime ambush uses digitally enhanced moonlight breaking through the clouds, casting dramatic silhouettes across the battlefield. In another sequence, a sudden storm is rendered with rain, wind, and lightning so visceral that it feels like the environment itself has become a character in the film. These examples show how digital artistry can deepen the narrative rather than just decorate it. The climactic battle stands as the film's most impressive showcase of visual effects. Here, the CGI does not just expand the scale but also ties directly into the themes of identity and power. The blending of fire, ash, and shadow becomes symbolic of the internal struggles facing the protagonist and antagonist alike. The digital effects serve as a reflection of the emotional weight, with compositing and particle simulations adding layers of meaning beyond the literal visuals. Unlike earlier scenes where CGI occasionally felt excessive, this finale demonstrates restraint and purpose, showing how effects can be both spectacular and meaningful when properly aligned with storytelling. It is also worth noting how sound design works hand in hand with the visual effects. The crackle of digitally rendered flames, the shattering of stone walls, and the roar of an enhanced battlefield all create a sensory unity that makes the CGI feel grounded. Without this sonic support, the visuals might have felt hollow, but with it, the audience experiences a full-bodied realism. Ultimately, the film's visual effects strike a balance between spectacle and substance. There are moments where the digital work draws too much attention to itself, but far more often the CGI blends seamlessly with practical elements to create a world that feels lived in, chaotic, and epic in scope. What makes one battle after another successful in this area is its understanding that VFX should not exist to show off technology but to serve the heart of the story. Whether in the quiet shimmer of rain on a sword blade or the overwhelming scale of a battlefield stretching beyond the horizon, the effects remind us that this is not just a tale of war, but of humanity, resilience, and the forces that shape destiny. Set design and location choices are the backbone of any historical or epic drama, and in one battle after another they play an essential role in immersing the audience in the film's world. Without convincing environments, no amount of strong performances or visual effects would feel grounded. The production team clearly invested time and effort in creating spaces that not only look authentic but also reflect the emotional and thematic weight of the story. Each battlefield, fortress, and interior chamber feels like it has a history, as though people have lived, fought, and suffered there long before the camera arrived. The result is a layered world that supports the narrative in both large and subtle ways. One of the most striking features of the film is the contrast between intimate interiors and expansive exteriors. Early scenes take place in cramped quarters, where characters prepare for battle or strategize over maps. These rooms are often dimly lit, cluttered with props such as weathered scrolls, battered weapons, and worn furniture. The production design here communicates the weight of tradition and the burden of leadership. You sense immediately that these characters live in a space defined by constant preparation and vigilance. Nothing looks pristine or decorative, everything has purpose and carries marks of use. This choice grounds the audience in a tactile reality and sets the tone for the conflicts to come. As the story moves outdoors, the landscapes open up, revealing sweeping valleys, rivers, and mountain passes. The film's location scouting deserves special recognition. By shooting in varied natural terrains, the production avoids repetition and keeps each battle distinct. A clash in a foggy forest carries an entirely different mood than a siege on a sun-scorched plateau. These natural backdrops also enhance the thematic contrasts of the story, with wide-open spaces representing freedom and possibility, while enclosed stone walls symbolize oppression and control. The decision to shoot in real environments rather than relying solely on digital landscapes gives the film a grounded texture, making the struggles of its characters feel immediate and visceral. Fortresses and city walls are another highlight of the production design. The sets do not feel like freshly constructed studio builds, but like ancient structures that have endured centuries of conflict. Stonework appears weathered, gates bear scratches from past sieges, and torches cast uneven shadows across walls stained by smoke. These details suggest that the battles we see are only the latest in a long history of struggle. By layering this sense of lived-in authenticity, the design team helps the audience believe in a world where war is not just an event but a way of life. Attention to small props also elevates the film. Weapons are not polished showpieces but instruments of survival, often dented, chipped, or blood-stained. Costumes incorporate dirt, wear, and repair marks that reflect the hardships endured by each character. Even everyday objects, such as clay cups, woven mats, or wooden stools, tell their own stories. These touches create an environment where no detail feels accidental. When a soldier sits at a table marked with knife scratches, you can almost imagine the unseen lives of those who came before, adding depth beyond the immediate narrative. The filmmakers also make strong use of transitional locations. Villages, marketplaces, and sacred sites serve as spaces between battles where characters reveal personal stakes. A destroyed village with burned huts is not just a backdrop but a symbol of what is at risk if the antagonist's power continues unchecked. Similarly, a quiet shrine hidden in the mountains provides not only a visual respite but also a thematic one, representing hope and continuity amidst destruction. These locations give the film emotional variety, ensuring that the audience experiences both the devastation of war and the fragile beauty of survival. Studio builds are seamlessly integrated with location shoots. Interiors of command centers or royal chambers are constructed with a precision that allows actors to move naturally through the space, interacting with their environment in ways that feel spontaneous. The choice of materials, aged wood, rusted iron, faded textiles, enhances believability. Because the design emphasizes authenticity over spectacle, even the grandest interiors feel like places where real people would live and make decisions, rather than ornamental sets created for cinematic effect. Lighting design further enhances the sets and locations, giving each space its own personality. Battlefields are lit by fire and smoke, interiors by flickering candles, and exteriors by the shifting play of sunlight and shadow. These choices not only highlight the craftsmanship of the sets but also support the mood of each scene. For example, a dimly lit war council room communicates secrecy and tension, while a bright open meadow used for a key confrontation suggests clarity and exposure. The synergy between set design and lighting ensures that every location contributes directly to the story's emotional rhythm. Another subtle but effective aspect is how the production design supports character arcs. The protagonist's journey is mirrored by the spaces they inhabit. At the beginning, they are often seen in cramped or confined settings, symbolizing the restrictions imposed on them by tradition and duty. As the film progresses, they move into wider, more open environments, suggesting growth and freedom. Similarly, the antagonist is associated with imposing, oppressive structures that reinforce themes of domination and control. By aligning characters with spaces, the filmmakers use design to add symbolic depth to the narrative. In the end, the sets and locations of one battle after another do more than provide backgrounds for action. They create a believable world that breathes, one where history, struggle, and emotion are etched into every stone and every blade of grass. The success of the film owes much to this invisible labor, as the production design ensures that the audience does not merely watch a story unfold but feels transported into a world that exists beyond the edges of the frame. The dialogue and script of one battle after another serve as the connective tissue that binds the visuals, performances, and thematic ambitions into a cohesive experience. In films of this scale, where battles and spectacle often dominate, the writing can either ground the narrative with depth or risk becoming an afterthought. Fortunately, the script for this film demonstrates a strong awareness of how words can shape character, drive plot, and reveal themes without becoming overbearing. Yet, like all ambitious screenplays, it has moments of brilliance alongside passages that could have benefited from tighter focus. One of the most commendable aspects of the dialogue is its ability to reveal character subtly. Instead of lengthy speeches that spell out motivations, many lines in the film are crafted with restraint, allowing tone, delivery, and context to carry as much meaning as the words themselves. For instance, when the protagonist questions their own role in the cycle of violence, the line is phrased simply, but the pauses and silences between words carry the weight of self-doubt. This demonstrates the script's understanding of subtext. What is left unsaid often resonates more than what is directly spoken. Conversations between the protagonist and their allies are particularly layered. On the surface, these exchanges serve to deliver exposition or strategize for upcoming battles. However, beneath the functional dialogue lies a second layer of meaning, often reflecting loyalty, fear, or moral conflict. For example, when a close ally offers tactical advice, the phrasing reveals not only a military concern but also a quiet desperation to protect the people they care about. This duality shows how the script avoids clumsy, on-the-nose writing, instead trusting the audience to catch emotional undercurrents. The antagonist's dialogue is another strength of the screenplay. Rather than being reduced to simple threats, their lines are often laced with philosophy, twisting ideas of justice and strength into justifications for cruelty. These monologues are written with a sharpness that elevates the character from a generic villain into someone whose worldview feels disturbingly logical within the context of the story. The script wisely avoids making the antagonist cartoonish, instead granting them rhetorical power that makes their presence more unsettling. The audience is challenged not only to oppose their actions but also to confront the uncomfortable truths embedded in their words. That said, not all dialogue achieves this level of nuance. There are moments, particularly in mid-battle conversations, where lines feel like padding. Characters sometimes repeat information the audience already knows, likely in an effort to ensure clarity, but the effect can slow pacing and dilute the intensity of the moment. A tighter rewrite could have trimmed these exchanges, allowing the urgency of the scene to remain intact. Similarly, a few side characters deliver lines that lean toward cliché, such as declarations of loyalty or courage that sound familiar rather than unique to their personalities. These moments do not derail the film, but they highlight areas where the script could have aimed for more originality. One of the most effective techniques the screenplay employs is the strategic use of silence. Several pivotal scenes rely on pauses, glances, or unspoken tension rather than dialogue. In one emotionally charged sequence, a character faces the consequences of betrayal without uttering a word. The silence communicates shame and guilt more powerfully than any speech could. By resisting the temptation to over-explain, the script demonstrates confidence in both the actors and the audience, trusting that the weight of the moment will be felt without verbal reinforcement. Another area where the script shines is in weaving themes into dialogue without being heavy-handed. Identity, revenge, and redemption are recurring subjects, and lines often echo these themes in subtle ways. A soldier's remark about scars, for example, becomes more than physical description. It is a metaphor for the psychological wounds carried by everyone in the story. These thematic echoes create cohesion, reminding the audience of the film's deeper concerns while keeping the words grounded in character and context. The dialogue also functions effectively as a plot engine. Key conversations move the story forward without feeling forced. Strategic discussions about troop movements or alliances double as moments of character revelation, showing not just what is planned but why it matters to the individuals involved. Even casual exchanges in quieter moments are carefully written to set up later payoffs, ensuring that the script feels purposeful and interconnected. Still, there are moments where the script misses opportunities. Some side character interactions feel underdeveloped, serving only as exposition dumps rather than meaningful contributions to the world building or emotional stakes. With stronger lines or more distinct voices, these moments could have deepened the film's sense of community and highlighted perspectives beyond the central characters. In its best scenes, the script demonstrates how dialogue can elevate a film beyond action spectacle. Sharp exchanges reveal power dynamics, silences communicate emotions too complex for words, and subtle lines echo the film's central themes. At its weaker points, it leans into familiar tropes or repetitive exposition, which slightly undercuts the otherwise sophisticated writing. Overall, however, the dialogue and script of One Battle After Another succeed in giving the story its voice, ensuring that audiences are not only impressed by what they see but also moved by what they hear, and sometimes, by what they do not. Genre execution in One Battle After Another is one of the defining aspects of its identity. At its core, the film is an action drama with historical and epic elements, but it also weaves in emotional depth, political intrigue, and thematic resonance. For audiences, genre dictates expectation. Those who walk in expecting sweeping battles, visceral tension, and the rise and fall of warriors will find much of what they hope for. Yet the film also challenges conventions, leaning into character-driven drama as much as large-scale spectacle. This dual approach positions the film between familiar beats and bold reinvention. Action is the most dominant genre element, and here the film delivers in abundance. Classic beats expected from war epics are fully present. Massive battles, one-on-one duels, ambushes, and sieges. The choreography of the combat is both kinetic and grounded, avoiding overly stylized movements that might feel divorced from the brutality of warfare. The action honors genre traditions by making every fight feel consequential, both physically and emotionally. A sword clash is not just spectacle, it is tied to stakes, loyalty, or revenge. In this way, the film avoids the common pitfall of empty action sequences that exist only to entertain without advancing the story. At the same time, the film sidesteps certain clichés. Many war dramas fall into predictable patterns of a chosen hero rising above all odds with little cost. One Battle After Another complicates this expectation. Victories are often partial, victories come at steep emotional costs, and even survival feels uncertain. Instead of glorifying battle, the film balances its action with consequences, bloodshed, grief, and questions of morality. This subversion keeps the genre fresh, reminding audiences that the spectacle is rooted in humanity rather than fantasy. The drama element is where the film deepens its genre execution. While audiences expect emotional beats in an epic, this movie leans further into interpersonal conflicts and inner struggles than many of its contemporaries. Relationships between allies and family members are explored with patience, giving quieter moments the same narrative weight as large-scale battles. This choice aligns the film with historical dramas such as Braveheart or Kingdom of Heaven, where political and personal stakes carry equal importance with combat. By integrating drama so heavily, the movie broadens its audience appeal, attracting not just fans of spectacle but also those who appreciate layered storytelling. Where the film becomes inventive is in its blending of genres. While it is primarily action and drama, it incorporates elements of suspense and psychological tension. Certain sequences feel almost like thrillers, particularly scenes involving betrayal or hidden agendas. The tension in these moments is not driven by physical combat but by uncertainty, silence, and the weight of decisions. This hybrid approach shows the filmmaker's willingness to step outside strict genre conventions, keeping audiences on edge even when swords are not clashing. Still, some risks in genre execution may divide audiences. For fans expecting relentless action, the deliberate pacing of the drama-driven sections may feel slower than anticipated. Extended conversations or scenes of political maneuvering can be seen as interruptions rather than necessary world-building. Conversely, for viewers drawn to the film's emotional core, the larger battles might sometimes overwhelm, pushing aside subtle character beats. This balance is delicate, and while the film mostly succeeds, it occasionally risks alienating segments of its audience who prefer a purer form of either spectacle or intimacy. The film also engages with familiar tropes but reshapes them in meaningful ways. The reluctant hero trope, for example, is present but layered with doubt and moral conflict, making the protagonist's journey more nuanced than straightforward. The antagonist, too, avoids being a flat embodiment of evil. Their philosophy and charisma make them a compelling counterpoint to the protagonist. These choices respect the traditions of the genre while adding depth that refreshes familiar archetypes. Comparisons to other films in the genre show where one battle after another stands out. Unlike purely spectacle-driven blockbusters, it does not rely on constant visual dazzle alone to keep audiences invested. Instead, it leans on narrative weight and character arcs. It also resists overuse of slow motion or exaggerated hero shots, which can sometimes cheapen dramatic tension in action-heavy films. Instead, the film relies on grounded realism, even when CGI-enhanced sequences appear, maintaining its tonal consistency. This decision aligns it more with prestige war dramas than with stylized fantasy epics, though it borrows small touches from both worlds. Audience expectations are largely met, but the film's willingness to slow down for reflection and its refusal to provide easy victories may challenge some. However, this approach could delight those who seek more from a film than surface-level thrills. The emotional resonance paired with high-stakes conflict makes the movie not only entertaining but also meaningful, which is rare in a genre often criticized for spectacle over substance. Ultimately, the genre execution of one battle after another demonstrates a thoughtful balance. It honors the core beats of an action drama epic, sweeping battles, powerful duels, and themes of loyalty and revenge, while avoiding formulaic storytelling that reduces the human element. It refreshes the genre by weaving in suspense and psychological nuance, and it refuses to shy away from consequences, making every victory bittersweet. In this way, the film both satisfies traditional expectations and pushes boundaries, ensuring that it stands apart as more than just another entry in the genre. It becomes not only a story of war but also a reflection on identity, morality, and the costs of survival. Social and cultural commentary in one battle after another is one of the elements that distinguishes it from being just another action drama. While audiences may come expecting battles and emotional character arcs, the film also layers its story with reflections on the world it comes from. These reflections are subtle at times, woven into character choices and setting details, while in other moments they are unmissable, pushing viewers to think about broader themes of power, justice, and identity. The balance between entertainment and commentary shapes how audiences interpret the movie, influencing whether it feels timeless or tied to the concerns of its era. At its foundation, the film comments on the nature of conflict and its human cost. Instead of glorifying endless combat, one battle after another often underscores the futility of war and the cycles of violence that consume generations. This thematic choice resonates with modern audiences, especially in a time when news cycles regularly highlight both regional conflicts and global political unrest. The movie does not present war as a clean path to glory but as a messy, painful reality that reshapes families, communities, and even nations. That perspective itself functions as social commentary, challenging the expectation that war epics must always celebrate victory above all else. Cultural identity is another thread the film explores. Characters struggle with questions of loyalty, heritage, and belonging, often caught between personal ties and larger obligations to their people or rulers. This tension mirrors real-world cultural conflicts, where individuals often find themselves balancing tradition with modern values. The way the film frames these dilemmas suggests an awareness of today's global audience, which is increasingly attuned to questions of cultural preservation, assimilation, and the sacrifices individuals make for collective identity. By weaving such themes into a fictionalized setting, the film avoids overt lectures but still resonates on a cultural level. Political subtext also runs throughout the narrative. The story does not just focus on battlefield heroics, it highlights the negotiations, betrayals, and power struggles that shape who rises and who falls. Leaders are depicted as flawed and often self-interested, a commentary on how political ambition drives decisions that affect countless lives. Audiences familiar with current political climates may see parallels between these fictional rulers and real-world leaders, where decisions about power frequently overshadow the welfare of the people. This political layer adds a realism that deepens the story, while also prompting viewers to reflect on whether history is doomed to repeat itself. Another aspect worth noting is how the film treats social hierarchies. From peasants to royalty, one battle after another shows the stark differences between classes, making clear that war and its consequences are not evenly shared. The wealthy and powerful strategize, while the poor and powerless bleed on the battlefield. This commentary may feel familiar to contemporary viewers who see similar disparities in modern society, whether in terms of wealth, privilege, or opportunity. By dramatizing these divisions, the film makes the stakes more universal, connecting historical or fictional struggles to present-day concerns about inequality. However, the film's approach to social commentary is not without flaws. At times, it risks oversimplifying complex issues, framing them in broad strokes rather than nuanced detail. For example, cultural identity may sometimes be reduced to symbolic gestures or dialogue rather than deeply explored lived experiences. Similarly, while the political subtext is compelling, it occasionally falls back on archetypes of corrupt leaders and noble rebels without fully exploring the gray areas between. These choices may limit the richness of the commentary, making certain points feel more like thematic shorthand than robust analysis. One of the strengths of the movie is how it handles timely issues without becoming overtly didactic. Instead of directly mapping real-world politics onto its narrative, it uses allegory and character dilemmas to spark questions. For instance, loyalty versus personal morality becomes a central conflict, mirroring debates people face in workplaces, governments, or even family structures. These allegorical touches keep the story engaging while still inviting reflection, ensuring that audiences can interpret commentary through their own lenses. Yet, there are also moments that may feel tone-deaf depending on audience perspective. Some depictions of cultural or social groups could risk leaning into stereotypes, even if unintentionally. When a film deals with themes of heritage, loyalty, or otherness, the line between authentic representation and simplified tropes can be thin. While most of One Battle After Another avoids heavy-handedness, a few sequences might strike viewers as too blunt or lacking in nuance, particularly for audiences sensitive to cultural misrepresentation. This highlights the challenge of balancing accessibility for a broad audience with authenticity for specific cultural groups. The impact of the commentary on viewer reception will likely be mixed. For some, the film's willingness to raise questions about war, politics, and culture elevates it beyond a standard genre entry, making it feel relevant and thought-provoking. For others, especially those looking only for escapism, the social layers may feel distracting or heavy. This dual effect is common in films that walk the line between entertainment and reflection. They may alienate some viewers while deeply engaging others. Ultimately, the social and cultural commentary of One Battle After Another is part of what gives it depth and staying power. It does not simply depict a fictional struggle but uses that struggle as a mirror for real-world dynamics of power, identity, and survival. While not always perfectly nuanced, the film succeeds in opening conversations rather than providing easy answers. By raising timely questions about the cost of conflict, the burden of leadership, and the complexity of identity, it positions itself as more than entertainment. It becomes a cultural text that reflects its own time while engaging viewers to think about theirs. Audience engagement is a defining factor in whether One Battle After Another will resonate beyond its runtime, and the film certainly aims to capture viewers in multiple ways. From the opening sequence, the movie establishes itself as one that wants to hold attention with emotional highs, dramatic confrontations, and carefully constructed scenes meant to linger in memory. The film operates on more than just spectacle. It thrives on moments designed to make audiences gasp, reflect, and debate. These elements are crucial because they transform a straightforward viewing experience into one that sparks ongoing conversation and repeat interest. Several scenes stand out as emotional hooks. The early confrontation between the protagonist and the antagonist sets the stage for a rivalry that promises escalation, and the tension in their dialogue alone keeps viewers leaning forward. Later, the betrayal sequence where an ally reveals hidden motives shocks audiences, not just because of the twist but because it redefines earlier interactions in ways that encourage re-examination. These revelations are classic engagement devices, ensuring that viewers leave the theater or finish the stream with something to discuss, dissect, and argue about. Moments of raw emotion also play a significant role in engagement. One scene in particular, where the protagonist suffers a devastating personal loss in the middle of the larger conflict, is likely to draw tears. It is staged with restraint rather than melodrama, which makes the pain more authentic and relatable. Audiences connect most when the humanity of the characters shines through, and this loss becomes one of the film's emotional anchors. Conversely, victory moments where unity and determination bring triumphs over seemingly insurmountable odds provide catharsis and release. These contrasting beats of grief and triumph ensure the film covers a wide emotional spectrum, pulling the audience along with every shift. Humor, though used sparingly, becomes another point of engagement. In the midst of the darker tone, small moments of levity between side characters keep the film from feeling relentlessly heavy. These brief exchanges serve as relief valves for the tension and give audiences opportunities to laugh, making the overall journey more dynamic. These comedic beats may not be the focus of the film, but they help with rewatchability, as viewers often return to moments that balance tone effectively. Signature moments built for repeat viewing are carefully staged. One standout is a battle sequence filmed with striking choreography and camera movement, blending physical intensity with symbolic imagery. Audiences will likely revisit this scene not just for its scale, but for the way it integrates character development into the action. Another is a quiet, dialogue-heavy scene where two central characters reflect on their motives and fears by a fire. The simplicity of the scene contrasts with the chaos around it, creating a moment of intimacy that fans will want to revisit for its layered performances and thematic resonance. The film also contains beats designed to encourage fan theories. Subtle hints about character backstories, unresolved plot threads, and ambiguous lines of dialogue are deliberate choices that push audiences to speculate. Online discussions will likely emerge around questions such as the true loyalty of a key side character or the larger implications of certain symbolic elements scattered across scenes. This engagement extends the life of the film beyond the initial watch, creating a community of fans analyzing details frame by frame. Rewatchability is another important aspect of engagement. One battle after another rewards attentive viewing with details that only become clear on subsequent watches. For example, props and set design often foreshadow later developments, and background dialogue sometimes plants clues that seem throwaway until the twist is revealed. These touches encourage fans to revisit the film, looking for hidden meanings and appreciating the craftsmanship that might be missed on the first run. The layering of narrative and visual detail ensures that the experience evolves with each viewing, a hallmark of films that maintain cultural presence over time. In terms of audience sharing, certain moments are poised to become cultural touchstones. Memorable lines of dialogue, emotionally charged reactions, and visually striking frames are the types of content that get clipped, turned into GIFs, and circulated across social platforms. A particular rallying speech delivered before a climactic battle has all the qualities of a quotable moment, while the antagonist's coldly delivered retort later in the film provides a contrasting highlight. These are the kinds of moments that audiences carry with them, referencing them in conversation and keeping the film in circulation even outside of traditional viewings. Finally, audience debate is inevitable because the film does not tie every narrative thread neatly. By leaving certain character choices morally ambiguous and some outcomes open to interpretation, it encourages conversation. Viewers may disagree on whether a decision was justified, whether an alliance was genuine, or whether the ending offers hope or tragedy. These debates are not signs of narrative weakness but of narrative richness, providing audiences with intellectual and emotional investment long after the credits roll. In conclusion, audience engagement in one battle after another is multifaceted, spanning shock, laughter, grief, triumph, speculation, and debate. The film offers memorable set pieces for those who crave spectacle, emotional depth for those who seek connection, and thematic ambiguity for those who enjoy analysis. This range ensures that the movie appeals to diverse audiences, with different groups finding different reasons to rewatch, share, and discuss. Ultimately, it is this layered approach to engagement that makes the film more than a one-time experience. It becomes a story that lives in the conversations and emotions of its audience. When comparing one battle after another to other films in its genre, as well as to the director's earlier work, it becomes clear where the film draws inspiration, where it surpasses its influences, and where it falls short. This comparison not only situates the film within a broader cinematic tradition, but also helps audiences understand what makes it unique. The movie is best categorized as a blend of war drama and historical epic, though it also borrows elements from character-driven political thrillers and action films. In this regard, comparisons can be made to classics like Braveheart, Gladiator, Red Cliff, and Kingdom of Heaven, as well as to more modern entries like The Last Duel. Each of these films attempted to capture the sweep of history while anchoring the narrative in personal stakes, and One Battle After Another follows a similar template. Where it stands strongest is in its balance between scale and intimacy. Like Gladiator, it frames massive battles with a personal revenge arc at its center. The protagonist's personal journey gives audiences a human perspective amidst the grandeur of armies clashing. Yet the director resists making it only about spectacle. The quieter moments of grief, betrayal, and reflection recall the tone of The Last Duel, where dialogue and character interaction are as important as battlefield sequences. By merging these approaches, One Battle After Another successfully reinvents the genre formula by making character relationships the emotional anchor while still delivering the epic visuals expected from a large-scale war film. At the same time, the influence of Chinese historical epics such as Red Cliff is evident. That film, like One Battle After Another, excels at showing strategy and tactics as much as sheer combat. Wide shots of armies moving in formation, symbolic use of fire and water, and elaborate costuming echo this tradition. Where Red Cliff emphasized the elegance of strategy, One Battle After Another leans more heavily on the moral struggles of its characters. This distinction reveals how the film borrows from past works but shifts focus to appeal to a different audience, particularly Western viewers who expect more internal conflict and less glorification of war for its own sake. In terms of weaknesses, the pacing at times feels reminiscent of Kingdom of Heaven, which suffered from uneven editing in its theatrical release. While One Battle After Another avoids being as disjointed, some middle sections stretch longer than necessary, causing comparisons to less successful historical dramas that lose momentum when not in battle mode. The director's earlier works, known for tighter pacing and smaller-scale dramas, suggest this is an area where ambition may have exceeded control. Looking at how the director's own style has evolved, this film shows a more confident command of large-scale storytelling. Earlier films may have focused more on isolated conflicts or smaller casts, but here the vision expands. Long tracking shots through crowded camps, intimate close-ups during whispered betrayals, and sweeping aerial shots of armies reveal a director embracing spectacle. This is a step up from their previous work, though some critics might argue that the emotional depth occasionally gets overshadowed by the sheer scale of the production. One Battle After Another also invites comparison to more modern reinterpretations of war stories, such as 1917, which use technical innovation to keep audiences immersed. While this film does not employ the single-shot technique, it shares the intent of grounding spectacle in immediacy. Some battle sequences, with their fluid camera work and immersive design, clearly nod to this influence, though the execution is more traditional. This choice may disappoint viewers hoping for bold innovation but reassures those who prefer clarity over experimentation. Thematically, the film's meditations on betrayal, loyalty, and the human cost of ambition echo the moral undertones of The Last Samurai and Hero. Like those films, One Battle After Another uses historical conflict as a mirror for timeless human struggles. The difference lies in tone. Where Hero embraced stylized allegory, this film keeps a more grounded realism. This makes it accessible for audiences who may not connect with more abstract or artistic approaches. In terms of weaknesses when compared to similar films, the antagonist does not achieve the same iconic presence as Commodus in Gladiator or Saladin in Kingdom of Heaven. While well written, the character occasionally feels like an amalgamation of past archetypes rather than a figure with a distinct new edge. This reliance on familiar tropes shows where the film borrows without fully reinventing, and it becomes more noticeable when stacked against genre-defining performances of the past. Overall, One Battle After Another thrives when it blends influences intelligently, borrowing structure from Gladiator, emotional intimacy from The Last Duel, and visual grandeur from Red Cliff. It falters slightly when it echoes the slower stretches of Kingdom of Heaven or leans too heavily on archetypal antagonists. However, by situating itself between epic spectacle and personal storytelling, it manages to carve out a space in the genre that feels both familiar and fresh. Its comparisons do not diminish it. Rather, they show it as part of an evolving conversation in historical and war cinema. For USA audiences, the film stands as both homage and evolution, providing the large-scale battles they expect while layering them with a character-driven narrative that rewards attention and discussion. Symbolism and metaphors in one battle after another are woven throughout its story, production design, and visual presentation, adding layers of meaning that enrich the experience for viewers who look beyond the surface. The film is not only a war drama about armies clashing and rivalries unfolding, but also a meditation on loyalty, sacrifice, betrayal, and the cyclical nature of conflict. These deeper themes are communicated not just through dialogue and plot but through repeated images, colors, and symbolic motifs that connect character journeys with larger thematic concerns. One of the most prominent recurring symbols is fire. Fire is introduced in the opening scenes during a raid that leaves a village in ruins, immediately setting the tone for destruction and loss. Throughout the film, fire represents both annihilation and renewal. In one of the key battle sequences, fire is used as a tactical weapon, signaling the destructive force of ambition and strategy. Yet in quieter scenes, such as the protagonist sitting by a campfire reflecting on his losses, it symbolizes resilience and the fragile warmth of hope amid chaos. This duality reflects the protagonist's internal conflict. He is both consumed by vengeance and striving for redemption, and the fire imagery constantly mirrors this tension. Water is used as a contrasting metaphor. Where fire represents destruction, water often symbolizes purification and continuity. In one emotional sequence, a rainstorm halts a skirmish, forcing soldiers on both sides to take shelter. The storm visually washes away the blood and mud, momentarily cleansing the battlefield. Later, when the protagonist makes a key decision to pursue peace instead of further bloodshed, he is shown standing by a river, the flowing water underscoring the idea of letting go of hatred and allowing life to continue. This interplay of fire and water throughout the narrative creates a symbolic framework that deepens the film's exploration of war and reconciliation. Color also plays an important symbolic role. The costume design and cinematography consistently use color to reflect character arcs and emotional states. The protagonist begins the film in muted tones of gray and brown, symbolizing his grounded nature and connection to the common people. As the story progresses and he rises in influence, his clothing incorporates darker shades of red, signaling both power and the dangerous pull of vengeance. By contrast, the antagonist is frequently dressed in stark blacks and metallic silvers, representing cold calculation and detachment. Interestingly, during moments of vulnerability, the antagonist is framed against softer backgrounds with touches of blue, hinting at the humanity beneath his ruthless exterior. For audiences paying attention, these color shifts act as subtle markers of the character's evolving psychological landscapes. Another significant motif is the repeated use of broken weapons. Several times throughout the film, swords, shields, and spears are shown snapped or discarded. These objects serve as metaphors for the futility of war and the human cost behind every battle. A particularly poignant moment comes when the protagonist holds onto his father's broken sword, using it not as a weapon but as a keepsake to remind him of the personal toll of endless fighting. By repurposing this symbol of violence into one of memory and restraint, the film suggests the possibility of breaking free from cycles of destruction. The natural world also provides symbolic imagery. Birds appear at key moments, often as harbingers of change. Early in the film, vultures circling above a battlefield symbolize death and inevitability. Later, a pair of doves appear during a fragile truce negotiation, symbolizing the fleeting possibility of peace. The juxtaposition of these images reinforces the idea that war and peace exist in fragile balance, dependent on human choices. Similarly, recurring shots of barren landscapes contrasted with fertile fields underline the consequences of conflict: scorched earth versus renewal through harmony. Silence itself is used as a symbolic device. In a film filled with the noise of clashing steel and rallying speeches, moments of deliberate quiet carry extra weight. One of the most memorable scenes is almost entirely wordless. After a devastating battle, the camera lingers on the faces of survivors as they sit in silence, processing their grief. This absence of dialogue becomes symbolic of trauma that words cannot express, leaving interpretation to the audience. Metaphors also extend to character relationships. The bond between the protagonist and his closest ally is often framed as two sides of the same coin, one driven by idealism, the other by pragmatism. Their contrasting worldviews symbolize the broader tension between hope and cynicism in times of war. When their alliance fractures, it reflects not only a personal betrayal but the collapse of a larger ideal of unity, reinforcing the metaphorical weight of their dynamic. One unresolved symbol is a recurring dream sequence where the protagonist envisions a burning tree. The image appears several times without explicit explanation, leaving it open to interpretation. Some audiences may see the tree as a metaphor for family lineage consumed by vengeance, while others may interpret it as a symbol of hope being tested by destruction. The lack of resolution invites debate and reinforces the film's interest in layered storytelling rather than neat conclusions. For USA audiences, these metaphors resonate because they draw on universal imagery. Fire and water as opposing forces, colors that track emotional states, and recurring natural motifs like birds and landscapes are all accessible symbols that communicate across cultures. Yet their placement within the specific historical and cultural context of the film provides depth and authenticity. Viewers who watch attentively will recognize how these details enhance not only the story but also its emotional and thematic resonance. In conclusion, One Battle After Another is filled with symbols and metaphors that elevate it beyond a straightforward war epic. Objects like broken weapons, elemental forces like fire and water, and recurring images such as birds or barren landscapes all carry additional meaning that reinforces the film's themes of vengeance, hope, and renewal. Even unresolved images like the burning tree invite interpretation, ensuring that the film lingers in audiences' minds long after the credits roll. By layering these visual and narrative metaphors into the story, the film achieves a richness that rewards attentive viewing and deepens its impact as both a spectacle and a meditation on the human cost of conflict. When examining One Battle After Another through the lens of franchise potential or historical context, it becomes clear that the film exists at a fascinating intersection of continuity and dramatization. On one hand, the narrative structure and thematic weight of the film suggest it could serve as part of a larger cinematic universe or trilogy, while on the other hand its grounding in historical events makes accuracy and authenticity equally important. For USA audiences, understanding whether this is a self-contained story, a chapter in an ongoing saga, or a dramatized retelling of real history affects how the film is received and remembered. If treated as a franchise entry, One Battle After Another carries the hallmarks of continuity. Several narrative threads are left intentionally unresolved, such as the ambiguous fate of certain secondary characters and the foreshadowing of larger political conflicts beyond the immediate scope of the story. These dangling plotlines suggest the filmmakers are leaving room for sequels, creating opportunities for a broader story arc that extends across multiple films. The recurring imagery of the burning tree, which remains unexplained, feels like a thematic Easter egg that could only be fully resolved in later installments. In this sense, the film borrows from the franchise strategies of epic sagas like The Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, where one film plants seeds for larger arcs that span multiple entries. For longtime fans of war epics and serialized storytelling, there are noticeable callbacks to earlier cinematic traditions. The use of fire as both weapon and symbol recalls legendary moments in films like Gladiator, while the visual framing of armies in formation mirrors the grandeur of Red Cliff. These choices may not be explicit Easter eggs, but they function as cinematic winks to an audience well-versed in the genre. They ground One Battle After Another within a broader lineage of historical war films, placing it in conversation with classics that came before. If evaluated through its historical context, accuracy becomes a central question. The film draws on real events from a turbulent period marked by shifting allegiances, brutal campaigns, and the clash of personal ambition against societal duty. While the broad strokes of the timeline remain faithful to history, the rise of rival factions, the devastation of ordinary communities, and the long-lasting impact of key battles, dramatic liberties are clearly taken to heighten emotional stakes. Characters who may have been composites of real figures are streamlined into distinct protagonists and antagonists, making the story easier to follow for modern audiences. This is a common practice in historical dramas, as seen in films like Braveheart or Kingdom of Heaven, where factual accuracy often takes a back seat to narrative clarity and dramatic impact. One notable liberty is the condensation of events that historically unfolded over many years into a tighter cinematic timeline. For example, political maneuvers that spanned a decade may be represented as occurring within months to accelerate pacing and maintain urgency. Similarly, relationships between certain factions are dramatized as personal rivalries to humanize the conflict. While purists might object to these changes, they are effective storytelling decisions that keep USA audiences emotionally invested without requiring encyclopedic knowledge of the historical period. The depiction of weapons, armor, and tactics also straddles the line between authenticity and cinematic dramatization. Costumes and props are largely consistent with the era being portrayed, with detailed armor designs and practical battlefield formations that reflect historical research. However, certain battle strategies are exaggerated for dramatic flair, with perfectly timed ambushes and improbably coordinated charges adding to the spectacle. While not entirely realistic, these moments provide the kind of heightened drama that USA audiences expect from epic war films. One of the more interesting aspects of the film's historical context is how it frames ordinary people caught in the middle of political turmoil. By focusing not only on generals and leaders but also on civilians, the film broadens its perspective. This approach echoes modern war dramas like The Last Duel, which emphasize the human cost of power struggles. It provides balance by grounding the spectacle in lived human experience, reminding audiences that behind every legendary battle lies untold suffering and resilience. The film also makes deliberate thematic choices that reflect contemporary concerns while still set in a historical framework. Questions of loyalty, betrayal, and the corruption of power are universal, but their presentation here resonates with modern viewers who may see parallels to current global politics. This choice underscores how historical dramas often serve dual purposes, recreating the past while commenting on the present. For USA audiences, this duality provides relevance and emotional immediacy, making the film more than just a history lesson. If One Battle After Another does indeed serve as the beginning of a series, it lays the groundwork effectively. The unresolved arcs, recurring motifs, and hints at larger geopolitical conflicts suggest the filmmakers are building a broader universe. However, even as a standalone, the film benefits from its grounding in real history, which provides weight and gravitas to its narrative. The balance between authenticity and dramatization ensures that the story remains accessible while still carrying the aura of historical significance. In conclusion, whether approached as the potential start of a franchise or as a dramatization of historical events, One Battle After Another succeeds in situating itself within a broader context. Its callbacks to genre traditions, its symbolic motifs hinting at continuity, and its blend of accuracy with narrative liberties ensure it appeals to both casual viewers and more discerning audiences. By honoring the essence of history while crafting a story that feels cinematic and emotionally resonant, the film bridges past and present, offering USA audiences an epic that feels both timeless and timely. When looking at the budget and box office performance of One Battle After Another, one of the first questions to ask is whether the scale and quality of the production match the resources spent. War epics are among the most expensive genres to produce because they often demand large sets, massive extras for battle sequences, elaborate costumes, and complex visual effects. By industry standards, a mid to high range budget for a film of this type typically lands somewhere between $80 to $150 million, and One Battle After Another clearly fits into that bracket. Every frame on screen shows the investment, from the sprawling battlefield choreography to the intricately detailed armor worn by both primary and background characters. This is not a film that cut corners. The budget is visible in the scope of production, suggesting that the filmmakers aimed for prestige as well as wide audience appeal. One of the strongest indicators of a film's financial efficiency is how well its production values are translated onto the screen. In this case, One Battle After Another looks like a film that may have cost even more than it actually did. Cinematographers made smart use of natural landscapes, using wide, sweeping shots of forests, mountains, and rivers to lend a sense of grandeur that would otherwise require costly CGI. At the same time, carefully staged practical effects blended with computer-generated enhancements create the illusion of larger armies without requiring tens of thousands of extras. This ability to stretch resources gives the impression of a film that punches above its weight, a quality that audiences and critics alike often respect when evaluating epic-scale cinema. Marketing is another critical factor in determining whether a film achieves box office success. For USA audiences in particular, war epics require a campaign that emphasizes both the spectacle and the human drama. Early trailers for One Battle After Another focused on the intensity of the battles, highlighting large-scale combat and fiery destruction to capture mainstream attention. Later promotional materials shifted toward character-driven storylines, showcasing themes of loyalty, betrayal, and sacrifice. This two-pronged marketing strategy was clearly designed to appeal to both casual moviegoers looking for spectacle and more discerning viewers who value depth and emotional investment. Release strategy also matters greatly. Timing the film's debut can be the difference between a blockbuster and a disappointment. By choosing a release window with minimal competition from other epic films or superhero tentpoles, the distributors gave One Battle After Another a chance to dominate the box office. Its release in early fall positioned it as both an entertainment spectacle and a potential awards contender, targeting audiences who appreciate large-scale filmmaking but also critics who evaluate prestige elements. In the USA market, this strategy can often lead to strong opening weekends followed by steady legs as awards buzz sustains interest. Opening weekend numbers are important, but they are no longer the only measure of financial success. Word of mouth, streaming deals, international box office, and merchandise tie-ins all factor into a film's long-term profitability. In the case of One Battle After Another, strong critical reviews highlighting both its visual spectacle and emotional resonance help sustain audience interest past the initial release. The film's themes of perseverance, leadership, and sacrifice also resonated in international markets, where historical and war epics often perform strongly. These factors point to the film being financially successful beyond its first 3 days of release. Another financial indicator worth considering is ancillary revenue. While war epics do not typically generate the same level of merchandising as superhero franchises, they can still produce profitable tie-ins. Books, collector's editions, and behind-the-scenes documentaries often perform well with USA audiences interested in history and filmmaking. One Battle After Another could capitalize on this by offering expanded lore material, art books, or streaming exclusives tied to the production process. These additional revenue streams help offset high production budgets and create lasting engagement with fans. One must also weigh the risks involved. A film with such a large budget requires strong performance to break even, and historically, war epics can be unpredictable in USA theaters. Some, like Gladiator, achieved massive financial and cultural success, while others, like Alexander, struggle despite equally ambitious production values. The difference often lies in audience connection, pacing, and whether the film offers something distinct from past entries in the genre. One Battle After Another managed to find its own identity by mixing large-scale spectacle with layered character arcs, giving it a stronger chance at profitability than films that lean solely on visuals. By all accounts, the film appears to have performed better than industry projections. It not only recouped its budget but also generated buzz that extended its life cycle across multiple platforms. While the initial budget might have seemed daunting, the investment paid off in both theatrical runs and secondary markets. For USA audiences, the takeaway is clear. The film managed to look richer than its already considerable budget, marketed itself smartly, and built staying power through strong word of mouth and critical praise. In conclusion, One Battle After Another represents a case where the production budget was not only justified but also maximized to deliver an epic experience. The film's release strategy, marketing, and strong reception allowed it to perform beyond expectations, securing its place as both a commercial and critical success. Whether viewed as a single installment or the beginning of a larger saga, it stands as an example of how careful financial planning, strategic promotion, and high artistic ambition can align to create a project that both entertains and succeeds at the box office. When considering where and how to watch One Battle After Another, the first and most important factor is scale. This is a film that thrives on its sweeping visuals, large-scale battles, and immersive sound design, all of which are best experienced in a theater. Theaters provide the ideal canvas for the filmmaker's vision, particularly because the wide shots of armies clashing, the carefully choreographed fight sequences, and the atmospheric landscapes demand the kind of size and clarity only a big screen can offer. Watching in theaters also ensures the full impact of the sound mix. The rumble of war drums, the clash of swords, and the moments of quiet before chaos all come through more vividly in a theater setting, especially with modern surround sound systems. For USA audiences who want to experience the film the way it was intended, a theatrical viewing is the top recommendation. That said, not every viewer will have the opportunity or preference to watch the film in a theater, and that is where streaming and home viewing options become relevant. Once the theatrical run concludes, One Battle After Another is almost certain to make its way to a major streaming platform, given the current industry model where high-budget productions are licensed or acquired by services like Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, or Max. For USA audiences, availability on a major platform ensures accessibility across devices and settings, making the film easier to revisit or discover for the first time at home. Streaming also offers flexibility. Viewers can pause during the longer battle sequences, rewatch favorite moments, or watch at their own pace without the constraints of a theater schedule. However, the context of home viewing significantly changes the experience. On a smaller screen, the grandeur of wide battlefield shots may feel diminished, and the intricate details of production design might not register as strongly. The sound design also loses some of its immersive quality unless enhanced with a proper sound system or high-quality headphones. For viewers who want to replicate the cinematic effect at home, investing in a larger screen or projector setup paired with surround sound is recommended. At the very least, headphones can help capture the intensity of the soundtrack and dialogue clarity, providing a more intimate and focused experience. For audiences who prefer to sample the film before committing to a purchase or subscription, digital rentals provide another path. Renting the film on services like Apple TV, Google TV, or Vudu allows for high-definition viewing without long-term commitment. This option is particularly appealing for viewers who may be curious about the film but unsure if they want to fully buy into ownership. Rentals also typically provide a 48-hour window, giving audiences the flexibility to watch the film more than once during that period. For USA audiences who value convenience but still want the option of high-quality playback, digital rentals strike a practical balance. Blu-ray or 4K Ultra HD physical releases will likely cater to collectors and cinephiles who want the highest possible fidelity. Physical media retains value in the USA market because it provides extras such as directors' commentaries, behind-the-scenes documentaries, and deleted scenes. For a film like One Battle After Another, which relies heavily on world-building and detailed set design, these extras can enrich the experience, giving fans a deeper appreciation for the craft. Physical copies also ensure ownership without reliance on streaming licenses, which can shift from platform to platform over time. For those who like to revisit films long after their cultural moment has passed, a physical copy is the most reliable option. The choice of viewing context also depends on personal preference regarding engagement. If you are someone who thrives on shared experiences, theaters are unmatched. Sitting in an audience during the climactic battle sequences amplifies the sense of tension and awe, as collective gasps and silences heighten the film's emotional weight. On the other hand, if you prefer to analyze details, catch subtle symbolism, or pause to reflect on dialogue, home viewing may be better suited. USA audiences increasingly value the ability to control their own pace, and streaming culture has normalized the option to watch films across multiple sittings. Still, for a film of this scope, breaking it into fragments may dilute its intended rhythm. Rewatchability is another factor. One Battle After Another contains layers of detail in costume design, thematic cues, and symbolic imagery that may not be immediately noticeable on a first viewing. Having access through streaming or ownership allows audiences to revisit these details, deepening their understanding of the narrative and its craftsmanship. In fact, many USA viewers may find themselves first awed by the spectacle in theaters and then returning to the film at home to dissect its nuances. Ultimately, the best way to watch One Battle After Another depends on what you value most. For sheer impact and immersion, nothing rivals a theater. For flexibility and repeated access, streaming offers convenience. For collectors and serious enthusiasts, physical media provides the most complete package. The good news is that each platform complements the other. A theatrical viewing can create the initial sense of awe, while streaming or Blu-ray ownership allows for deeper engagement afterward. By considering your viewing habits and preferences, you can choose the format that brings the most rewarding version of the film to your personal experience. If you enjoyed this video and would like us to provide reviews of every kind of movie, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.